You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
The horse internet is losing their minds over a unique and interesting clip job at U.S. Dressage Finals. This week, it's time for all the No Stirrup November and bit-fitting hot takes. Thanks for tuning in.
From Heels Down Mag, a podcast where horse pros chat about what's happening in the horse world over drinks. Welcome to Happy Hour.
I'm Justine Griffin.
I'm Jessica Payne.
And I'm Ellie Woznicka. Welcome to episode 118 of Heels Down Happy Hour.
What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Not much.
All right, so I have a really interesting drink this week that I've been holding on to it because I really wanted to share it with you guys.
Okay.
I'm really excited.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm like a 30-something-year-old like newbie baby on TikTok. I don't understand it. I have the app. I find myself like mindlessly scrolling through it, but like I've never produced a TikTok in my life. So take everything I say with a grain of salt because I do not use it correctly and I'm not savvy and I'm not cool on TikTok. But there is this trend going around on TikTok. And have you heard of these mocktails that are supposed to be like it's kind of like a sleepy time tea, like to help you go to bed at night?
Oh, no.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Yes, I have.
So they're called a Sleepy Girl Mocktail, and they're very simple. And I thought, this is like a different spin for a drink this month. Basically, what makes it sleepy is, it's actually funny because it makes me think of what we put in our horses' supplements to calm them. It's magnesium powder. So this recipe calls for just 1 tablespoon of magnesium powder. Seems easy enough to get at your grocery store or supplement store with ice. And you use a 1/2 cup of pure tart cherry juice. And then you top it off with some lemon lime flavored soda like a Sprite or sparkling water.
Oh,
and that can be your little mocktail before bed that will ease you into a good night's sleep.
That's pretty cool.
I feel like it's right up my alley.
Yeah.
It's fruity enough.
Yeah.
It is fruity enough for you.
And I'm not somebody who's I'm not like big on taking melatonin or something, but it just is a super bummer on those nights where you just know you can't get a good night's sleep. I would definitely try this.
I would try this.
So we'll have the recipe in our show notes for you guys. And this episode is brought to you by LiveEQ. All right, it's time for the news, which is brought to you by the Heels Down Spark, the only equestrian newsletter. It's free. Subscribe by going to bit.ly/sparkbyhd. Jess, do you want to kick us off?
Oh yeah. Because speaking of you on TikTok, I was on Facebook the other day and I feel like everybody saw it because the picture was just so epic. You couldn't miss it. But there was a horse at the Dressage Finals and it had a checkered clip job. Did you see this?
I did. Okay, so I want to hear more before I tell you my opinion. But okay. I saw it.
I don't really know I couldn't pull it off. No way.
Does not seem like your thing. Yes.
It's not my thing. But so the fact is, then I went searching for it a bit because I was pretty interested. One, how did they do it? Did they take, I was just fascinated by how it was. And so this girl, Fee, I think is her name, she decided that she hates clipping, which nobody really likes clipping, I don't think, but she hates clipping. And so she's very artistic and was like, you know what? I'm going to freehand checker clip job my horse instead. So a normal clip job of so she freehanded. Well, then I read somewhere else that she had a small little pattern from her friend and then freehand it. So I think it was a combination of both. She had a little checkered and then went around, but it's amazing. I mean, it said it took her 5 or 6 hours to complete, which I'm not sure I have the patience for that, nor I don't think my horse would. But she said her horse is like a dream, just stands there, is like a total goofball. And basically she went to Dressage Finals in Lexington and multiple people came up to take pictures of it. So I think you either loved it or hated it or just found it really interesting. I think it was one of those things, but it was super cool.
Oh yeah, I've seen all kinds of opinions on the internet on this. I can't not see the photo.
I just I didn't click on any comments or anything. I just went to kind of have her side of it because I was the internet people are all going to be about everything. So I just went to get her kind of side on it.
Exactly.
I mean, it is definitely impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skill wise, you have to admit.
That's what I think. I'm like, there's no way I could do that. Like, zero way. And she did it where like the neck and the underside were fully clipped and his legs were fully clipped. So like she did everything where her horse was like perfect, in the means of basically like it was done clip wise, that like if it sweat or anything else, it was fine. But wow, I just still couldn't believe the talent that it would take.
I feel like you've just got to be like, one, dressage. Like, I love dressage people, but also like you got to be pretty darn brave to show up with a look like that in the dressage world. So good for her that she felt, one, brave and confident enough in herself and her horse to show up at Dressage Finals with that.
Right.
That is like bold and brazen, and I am here for it. It's amazing. But two, yes. So I've read the comments, because there are obviously two camps. I mean, you could say this about
for
like
sure anything basically.
The rules that allow colorful looks now in dressage. Like, there are people who are really into that, and they've gone full steam ahead into like designing these like very colorful, super blinged out looks for the dressage ring. And then there are the people who turn their noses up a little bit and really like the traditional look. They probably wish they could still ride in a top hat. I don't know. But like, to each their own. I think it's amazing. I think it's good for the sport. And I hope she won a ribbon in Kentucky at finals. I hope she won something, because it was amazing.
She should have won like a best dressed or something at least.
Right.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't definitely clip a heart on Berkeley's butt at one point.
That's
okay.
Awesome.
I definitely did the hardcore pony heart.
Aww.
But did I show in it? No. But I mean, hers looks way classier than that. It's not like a little pony heart. It's way detailed and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was well done and bold, and obviously going to turn heads, but for all the right reasons. Like, I didn't think it looked tacky. I didn't, you know what I mean? It was expertly done. Like, she did like a groom level job on that.
100%.
I get anxiety just looking at it. The time it would take. I'm like, my God. Well, so I wanted to talk about No Stirrup November, because there's been, like, I feel like more of an uproar this year than in years past about how we need to rethink it. And I agree completely. I don't think it's good for horses' backs, for people who don't do no stirrups regularly, to just hike their stirrups off of their saddles and say, have fun. You don't get to have them for a month. I would feel horrible for those horses. So I wanted to talk about, like, I guess, what is your plan and stuff? Like, how do you guys feel about No Stirrup November? I personally, I don't ride much in November. It's cold up on my mountain. So I am of a no saddle November, because I maybe walk around on a horse for 20 minutes and I'm like, that's good for today. But have you guys seen like the backlash about No Stirrup November on Facebook and other social medias? And what are your thoughts?
I haven't seen any backlash, because, it's kind of just been, I think it kind of goes in waves, like, right? People like are all about it, 5 years ago or something like that. They're like, everybody's going to do No Stirrup November. And then it kind of teeters off, and then you kind of do it a little bit throughout the year. And then, so I find like it's kind of all over the place, but I haven't seen the backlash, but I don't really,
I think it's,
try to stay out of that, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, maybe backlash is a strong word, but I do think that there is, I don't want to say a movement either is the right word, but there's more awareness, I would guess, for what we do and how it affects the horses. So there are opinions out there that have been published in various publications, including ours on Heels Down, where people just say, like, taking your stirrups away for 30 days and just bouncing around on your horse's back when you're not maybe fit enough or conditioned enough or haven't done it in your normal routine training program before November. Is that really fair to the horse? I think that's mostly the argument. So, like, what is the safest and most productive way to add a no stirrup routine into your program? So, like, just curious, Jess, like, how do you do it with your students? At what point do you take their stirrups away or ask them to work without stirrups on their own time? Or
It is, very personal. Like it is case by case based that like, if I feel they need to get stronger or whatever else, and if the horse can handle it and everything else, like instead of a lot of No Stirrup November stuff, we do a lot of pull work and a lot of kind of cavaletti work this time of year to make sure the footwork's in and everything else. So we don't really do the no stirrups. I mean, I've done it in the past, like to certain people, but now we're on like more of a pull cavaletti sort of kick in the barn, if you want to say, like for most of our clients.
Yeah. And I think, there's a million fair ways to do it. I've had trainers where my horse lived in their program, and like every lesson required some bit of no stirrup work where I dropped my stirrups when with flatting for whatever exercise or whatever, and then I've been at barns where they make it more of like a fun competitive thing to do with your lesson buddies. I've been at a barn where like they keep tally and like there's a score at the end of the month, depending on what your ability, like what you're willing to try and what you want to do with no stirrups, which, it was always like a fun extra thing you could opt out of doing at the end of the lesson. When I was a kid, I thought it was a blast, So I don't think there's anything inherently evil about No Stirrup November. I think it's a fun thing for our horse community, and there's no right or wrong way to do it either,
Yeah, I just feel like you said, I mean, it should be something that's not just this time of year. I mean,
right.
Growing up when I was in lessons every week, like the first 10 minutes of my ride before I even started trotting, my trainer said, drop your stirrups and stand up, which let me tell you, nothing hurt my thighs like that exercise. And she said just one time around the arena. And by the time you get like 3/4 of the way, you're sweating. Like you're like, holy cow, like, am I going to make it? Like, I'm not even, your butt's maybe 3 inches out of the saddle. Like you're not far, but it just engages your core, your legs. Like, I think that stuff is just so important. And what I do with my students is, I mean, I make them do that same exercise. I'm like, I know how much this sucks, but do this now.
Well, and understanding that feel, like, because it could be really hard to explain, are you engaging your core to somebody until you do that and you're like, holy cow, I have to, in that moment.
Exactly. And I feel like there's so much that can be done at the walk too that is so much easier on the horses, like posting in a rhythm at the walk. You have more control if you're getting back into no stirrups. Like I did that a lot when I was rehabbing myself with Batman. I mean, granted, I was in a Western saddle because I needed my horn to hold on to, but I did a lot of that just at the walk because I was able to strengthen myself. And since it's at a slower speed, there's less risk that you're going to fall back and land on your horse's back. So that's something I really like to do, the standing, the posting, and like even doing a jumping position at the walk with no stirrups. I mean, that's a great way about strengthening your legs and getting yourself where you're strong enough to be successful at the higher gates with no stirrups, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like it absolutely comes in handy from a conditioning standpoint, but there are definitely times where my horse is tripped or we've took a big distance and I've lost my stirrups in a show setting and I've had to recoup, whether that's several fences without stirrups or I've had to finish the course without stirrups. And that's because my trainer made me work on that at home or else I wouldn't have been successful to do that,
No, for sure.
Yeah, if you didn't know, that's a big oh crap moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So what have you got, Justine?
All right, so my news is also kind of a hot topic this week. And instead of me just relaying everything that Doug said on his Facebook page, we brought Doug on. So, hey, Doug, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks for coming back. You had a nice and interesting and very engaging hot take on your Facebook this week, and I just thought we might as well have you talk about it yourself. But you shared this really interesting photo of Mia Farley at Maryland on her very cool thoroughbred, and her horse is very clearly ducking through this keyhole jump. And I think you describe it very well on your page about sort of the challenges those types of jumps face or overface the horses in those moments. But I'm hoping you could explain it a little bit more and why you wanted to start this discussion in the first place.
Yeah, sure. I guess a bit of background, obviously I've had event horses forever and ever. But started actually back in 2015, I think. Went on a bit of a crusade against the keyholes. At the time, they were starting to get smaller and smaller in diameter. And there was a picture that had been posted. Actually, I think of our friend Lainey Ashker ended up getting her head like literally getting chopped by the top of the brush.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, at the time, I was pushing really hard for either expansion of it, right? Obviously, clearly elimination would be great, but certainly having the picture enlarged. But then, Mia's picture popped up, and it felt like something that was still an unfinished conversation, if you will. The big catch that I've seen is that if you read the FEI course design guidelines, it actually sounds pretty good, honestly. But in practice, designers, course builders, whatever it is, whoever's making the decisions here, they really don't end up adhering to it. And to me, the biggest catch with these keyholes is that it's really more of an instinctual problem than it is a training issue. So, a horse that's going to have a propensity to duck is going to tend to duck regardless what you do. And we had one some time back that was really bad with it. So we built just took a 12 by 12 by 12 sort of 1-inch galvanized pipe and then stuck a drop cloth and cut a hole in it, right? So I figured, okay, we're going to start with a rail on the ground, start building it up. And went through with a whole bunch of horses at the time. While they would improve during the day, the next day you'd come back around and it was like back to square one. And okay, so maybe you got a 2% benefit, as far as the lasting training thing of it. But I think in the end, any other obstacle that you come across in the cross-country situation, you can either, you can basically deal with it, honestly, truly train them. But I really think the horses really have a very difficult time. The ones that do have time, trouble with it, they have a very difficult time with an obstacle like this. And Mia's picture was pretty striking, clearly. And the big catch, obviously, if you're going to duck, you're not going to be quite as sharp with your front end. And, there's been a number of incredibly high-profile accidents that have caused life-changing injuries, both William Fox Pitt, Andrew Nicholson, Harry Mead. Poor guy broke both of his elbows at the time. And, of course, Lainey had a pretty catastrophic fall. And, the list goes on. But, to me, I think we just have to be completely fair with the horses in that, if it's something that you can train or you can, it should be a true test of your ability to work with your partner. And frankly, if it's something that's in the end instinctual, I think it has no place in this competition.
I think you make a very fair argument, because that was my follow-up question is, so for listeners who might not be in the eventing scene, a keyhole jump is generally exactly what it sounds like. You're jumping through a circular
opening, basically.
Right, that has a roof. So there is a top to the fence that the horse goes through it. And
it's not, the big cat, the hardest part about this, right? It really affects a minority, a small portion of the population of horses that really have an aversion to it, right? But to me, it still becomes then a needless thing. So in 2015, I made a sort of a pretty big stand on it that was covered really well. And following that, and I'm on the USCA safety committee. And so I'm pushing hard for this for the entirety. But after that 2015 thing, they end up going to, now if you see a Kentucky, like the last jump is often kind of a horseshoe shape. That used to be a full circle, right? And so a number of jumps now have gone to more of that U shape, which is a wonderful thing, because frankly, a U shape, the horses jump it really, really well, because they're going to tend to judge the left and right side of it rather than the center. So we've gone away from, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like a Kentucky, they used to have a fish that was a convex shape, sort of high in the center, low on the sides, and that never jumped well. And now you're going to either a straight top, sort of horizontal top, or something that's concave, right? Something high on either side. And so the horseshoe shape is great. But yeah, these the keelholes, and the funny thing, you look at the FEI guidelines and it says it should be no bigger than 18 inches, which this clearly is greater than that. It's in width, and it should be a soft surface. So it should be a brush or something that, frankly, if the horse makes a mistake, the consequence of that mistake should be minimal. But I think in all practical terms, designers want to design for a championship level course, and they tend to push the boundaries. And the biggest challenge we have, I think, right now is the guideline is just that. It's not a hard and fast rule that it has to be this. It's just best practices. You should do this, but that's
not just
seldom adhered to. No, it's not. Yeah, I'm not singling out just Maryland.
And, right. I mean, you see them across the board.
It's around. It's around everywhere, and just happened to pop up this picture, and it was pretty striking. So something had to be said.
Well, so what would it take for to see real change?
Personally, I'd rather see them eliminated altogether.
Right.
There was one of the comments, and it was from Marbach, which is in Germany, and it was an A-frame that had a small hole, and underneath it was actually a ditch filled with water underneath the jump part of the keyhole.
It was terrifying.
So I'm like, this is the worst jump I've ever seen in my life. Like I mean, I've got one horse I would potentially attempt it with, but I would not be.
We probably would have just gone home.
I'd be pretty damn excited if I landed on the other side,
Oh gosh.
But to me, the thing is, in the future, we're already getting enough scrutiny with eventing, and I think we're getting wrapped up in racing, which is clearly getting a lot of pressure. So I think if we can do anything to eliminate jumps that have the likelihood of catastrophic sort of results from a mistake, we should just do our best to eliminate them, because frankly, the horse and rider health, this should be our first priority.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Doug, for coming on.
Oh yeah, anytime.
We always appreciate your explanation. So just a shout out to everyone who donates to our podcast on Patreon. We really appreciate everyone who wants to be a subscriber to Patreon, where you can get access to more exclusive content. For example, I shared quite a bit of my thoroughbred makeover journey there recently, and we're always dreaming and scheming of new things to share with you there. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/heelsdown. Okay, guys, so for our product review this month, we've got something fun to talk about. They're horse treats, and you guys both have them, right? They're zero proof.
They're so cute.
Yes.
Oh, they're so cute.
So my guys loved them. They ate them so fast, I ran out so quickly. But so Zero Proof is a company based out of Kentucky, and they are like literally the perfect product for us to share on our show, because they are inspired by your favorite cocktails.
They're different cocktails. They're
exactly.
So cute.
So don't get too excited. They don't actually contain any alcohol. Your horses
don't eat them. Yeah.
Right. Your horse isn't going to get a buzz from the treats here, but they are made with distiller grains from Kentucky, and they come in various flavors. So there's a mint for a mint julep, orange and cherry for an old fashioned, and apples for a classic apple martini. So did your horses have a favorite?
I think all of them.
Mine really liked the apple martini.
The apple was a hit.
Yes.
But they were just like perfect little size that you can put them in your pocket too, that I really liked. And they're not like making a mess. So, like if I'm going to the ring or whatever else, I could put them in my pocket and then have them right at the gate. They're really easy. And Abigail opened up all of them the first day and walked around and fed every horse very quickly, all of them.
That's so cute. So when I was in Kentucky, I actually met Melanie, who is the owner.
Oh, you did?
And really, she's the one who came up with the whole concept, and she came to our happy hour events at the makeover and handed out samples. So we were drinking beer and also got really fun cocktail inspired horse treat samples. So some of you who are listening might have already tried Zero Proof if you came to the makeover.
Nice.
But Melanie is amazing. She would also could very easily be a host on this show. She just is the most beautiful, well put together Southern lady I've ever met. And she is so passionate about what she does with Zero Proof, and is obviously a true horse lover. All of her heart goes into these treats, which makes it that much more fun to share them with my horses. Right. And, Wyatt, he was never really a cookie or treat guy. Like coming off the track, they're like really skeptical of cookies. Like I tried a variety and he would take it and spit it out. I'm like, okay. But not zero proof, like I was actually impressed because I just had not found a treat that he liked more than a carrot or an apple, but he loved the old fashioned zero proof horse treats. Like we went through the entire bag while we were in Kentucky and, they're really cute, and I like the packaging is really cute. They'd make a nice Christmas gift, for anybody that like any horse girlfriend, because like you said, Jess, they're small pellet treats. Like I was using them yesterday while Mikey was getting body work just to keep him from being like too ticklish while she was working on him. And they also make treats for your dogs too. So if you want to check it out, you can go to zeroproofhorsetreats.com. All right, so I'm very excited to introduce our first guest on the show tonight. We have Anna Merek, who is a decorated dressage rider who is coming off a wonderful bronze individual finish at the Pan American Games, and we're really excited to have her here and learn more about her career in dressage and her home farm in Ocala here in Florida. Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm great. How is everybody doing today?
Great. Well, I hope you're still beaming from the Pan Ams because holy moly, what a tremendous performance. I watched you and had goosebumps. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. It really was. And it's true. I am still beaming about it.
Oh, good. So I hope we could just start there because it's very exciting. Was this your first time at the Pan Ams? Can you tell us more about, what that international experience was like for you and your horse?
Yeah, it was my first time at the Pan Ams. It was the first time that I was on a team for the U.S. that was like a traveling team for a championship like this, and I have been on 2 Nations Cup teams in the past, both down in Wellington. So This was the first time that I ever had any sort of international travel, including like, I haven't done the European tours or anything like that. So it was really a big deal for me, a big step, in terms of, flying with my horse and being on a team where we're together for so long and all of that.
Very cool. Was it, you have any good stories? How was it flying with your horse or preparing your horse to fly?
It was, well, what I came away from the whole thing, especially looking back now that it's been a few weeks since the whole experience, it was just like, what I can say is that everybody on the U.S. dressage team, like Laura and George and everybody like behind the scenes that set everything up, do such an amazing job with the organization and just not only making it so that we don't have to worry about anything for like us or the horse or the travel or any of the arrangements, but also that it's a really nice environment it feels quite relaxed for such a big championship, if that makes sense. Like they do a great job of making it so that, it's not only just fun, but it's relaxing so you can really concentrate and focus on your horse. It's really cool.
That's amazing. And so speaking of which, tell our listeners about the horse you took to Santiago.
So Firefly he's a 13-year-old Dutch warmblood gelding. His owner imported him when he was about 7 years old. His owner's named Janet Simile. And he'd shown like a green Prix St. George in Europe when she imported him. And so then she brought him over here and she had him with a couple of different trainers before he came to me. And I've ridden him a little bit over 2 years now. She called me and she said, she asked if I would take him into training. And I said to her, that I'm pregnant, right? And
oh, no.
I think it was in about July, maybe it was a little bit before July. And she was like, yeah, I know, big deal. You'll be a couple of months out of the saddle, but, will you take him? And so I said, sure. I was like, oh, that's really great that, an owner doesn't care that I'm not going to be able to ride for a few months. And so I took him and he's a really sensitive horse. Like when I first started riding him, he was quite spooky. He actually had shown Grand Prix before, but he he couldn't really do all the ones very well. And he was a little bit kind of scared, claustrophobic of the piaffe. And I said to his owner, I said, only Firefly is going to tell us when he and I can do Grand Prix. And she was so cool about it. She was like, okay, I trust you. And so then I had May in November, and then I started riding him, I think like probably around, early December. And he what is so amazing to me about Firefly is that what I thought about him and the things that I felt and how nervous he was on certain things, he's a really eager horse, and never is he trying to look for a way out. And to me, with how scared he was in certain things, I said to Janet, I go,
sure.
I said, this is going to take a long time just until he gets comfortable. And, but to my surprise, I think that January or February, I showed him in a national I2 at WEC, just so that I could keep the piaffe forward and easy, and the ones, less ones. And then by the end of the season, I did a CDI in Wellington because he was just kind of coming along so fast. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's along the time, and I can still say he's such a cool partner, because every single show I feel like I can even ask for more and trust that I just always had to be careful to not overface him and to know where the limit was. But it's kind of like he's let that go further and further as he, started to trust me.
Well, I think that's a testament to you and your training that you took the time to build that in him. That's very cool.
Yeah, and your partnership.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what made you want to pursue dressage? What about the sport and that discipline sucked you in?
Well, that's a funny story too, because when I was young, my mom, I was animal crazy. And my mom and I would bring home all sorts of animals, and my dad was not an animal person, and we'd sneak all sorts of animals in. And I think for one of my birthdays, my mom gave me riding lessons. So my mom and I took riding lessons together at the barn that she grew up riding at. And it was a 100 jumper barn. And so I thought all my friends and all the kids jumped. And so that's originally what I wanted to do. And then I got scared on a couple horses, and I actually stopped riding. This was when I was very young. I think I was 7 or 8, and I got scared. I fell off, and my dad said to my mom, he was like, she's not going back to the barn until she asks to go back to the barn. And so I didn't for a little while, until I met a girl in grade school that had a horse, and she had a quarter horse, a cutting horse. And so then we just went out and we started riding together, and I leased a quarter horse mare, and we played, and we just, did all the stuff you do as little stupid girls with horses having fun. And my first horse came into the barn, and my parents bought him for me. He was from an auction, but that go to the kill pens and stuff. He was just a mixed horse and had some issues and stuff. Well, he was my horse, and I loved him, and he hated to jump, and I'd fall off all the time. And then I went to a schooling dressage show, and I got a blue ribbon.
Aww.
And then one of my mom's friends was she was like, you could be so good at dressage. Why don't you just stop jumping? And I thought to myself, I like winning blue ribbons a lot better than I like falling off.
Falling off.
Don't we all?
So
That sounds like a great idea.
I know. And I didn't want to get rid of my first horse. So that's what I ended up doing with him. And I got him to third level, and I got my bronze medal on him. And that was literally the absolute top that he could do. And that's what I ended up doing with him.
That's amazing. A dream story. I know.
Well, I want to go back because I don't want to, the Pan Ams, it's so amazing and stuff. And so looking forward with Firefly and everything, what are your goals now? Do you have some young ones? What's going on? What are you looking forward as your next kind of big thing, goal wise for 2024?
Well, Firefly, what's so cool and exciting about Firefly is I said to my coach, Ann, I was like, even with his rides at the Pan Ams, I was like, I go, there's still so much more in there. And she was like, oh, I know. And in the one ride at the Pan Ams, when I made a mistake early on, that was kind of an expensive mistake. And like, as that was happening, I was like, oh no. And so then I like snapped myself out of it, and I was like, well, you better ride your butt off now. And Anne was like, you rode so well after you thought you messed up.
That's amazing.
And she was like, if you could just ride like that all the time.
Oh my gosh.
You messed up before you go in the ring is what she's telling.
Exactly. And but to answer your question, like, in 2024, we're really looking forward to, trying to like kind of push Firefly to doing even more, and like some of the stuff that I can get at home and all that, and taking him through, the qualifiers for next year. And I have another horse that I ride that's actually my own horse that's just started at Grand Prix Holiday. And then I actually have, two of my own horses that I own by myself. Both of them have just started at Grand Prix. One's 10 and one's 11. And then I have a really nice 7-year-old. So like I have a couple coming up, behind Firefly, but Firefly is definitely the one that's most confirmed and strong and confident at the Grand Prix level for sure.
Nice.
Well, so speaking of Grand Prix, you've trained multiple horses through the levels to Grand Prix, and that is quite a feat in itself. What's one piece of advice or a tidbit of knowledge that you've learned from those experiences that you can share with our listeners, or maybe it's something you've shared with your own clients before?
I think from the group of horses that I brought along to Grand Prix, like it's funny when I think back, sometimes I would show a horse to Anne, and Anne would kind of like look at it and initially not really get why I loved this horse. And what I tell people is like a couple of the horses that I've brought up to Grand Prix haven't been the most unbelievable movers as young horses, but they've had 3 very good gaits. And I could tell early on that they had the temperament that they could learn anything. And so it's one of my horses that's just come to Grand Prix level, and he's only 10. And it's so funny because like I thought early on, I was like, he doesn't have the most impressive gaits, but he has 3 really good gaits. And when I started to kind of test a little bit of the Grand Prix stuff, I was like, he's not really bad at anything. And Anne will watch him warm up, and she'll be like, oh, his gaits and his neck and his short front legs and then I start putting him together and I start doing movements, and she's like, oh wow, that's a really good pirouette. Oh my gosh, he can piaffe so well. Oh, that's a really good extended trot. And I said to her, I go, that like it's not always necessarily about the biggest, flashiest mover as a 4-year-old. It's a lot of times about how the horse is built, that it has 3 good pure gaits, and but mainly that it has a really good temperament, and that it can take fair pressure, but that it can take pressure, and it doesn't get mad or get scared. And that is a lot of the training, but also like the horse has to have a temperament that really wants to work for you from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great to hear.
So this really feels like such an exciting time in the sport of dressage, especially for the USA. Where do you think the sport is headed?
Well, I think that in the U.S., they're really trying to promote the sport so that, people are more involved. We're trying to, make it so that there are more opportunities for young riders and for younger professionals to get training and come up the ranks and make it a more popular sport. And it's really cool because like what I've noticed as my horses have started to kind of get noticed is that they offer us a lot of help. With that, starting from the developing program with Charlotte, and then, on through the pre-elite and the elite programs, like they really want to see you do well. And it's an amazing amount of support that they were, see how you're coming, try to ask, what your goals are, and try to just basically give you help And back when I was like really first starting out and I didn't have, like a sponsor or, I just had my own horse, I was a little bit lost on where to even begin in starting in this sport and trying to, make it, I guess, quote unquote. And I was lucky enough to meet somebody that was exactly what I said, that wanted to help young riders. She's done it multiple times, Renee Eisler. And she saw something in me, and she's done it for multiple other young riders, and she just tries to give them a leg up in one way or another. And people like that are what really help the sport.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, Anna, it's been just a treat to have you on, but before we let you go, this is our last episode before the Thanksgiving holiday, and then, by then we're in the holidays. So do you have any fun holiday traditions that you do at the farm or you do with your own family?
Well, we always, so my husband, his favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. So since
we're coming up
dating,
on his.
I know. So since we started dating, we always do what he wants to do for Thanksgiving. And I absolutely love Christmas. So then we usually would go to Michigan for Christmas. But now that we have 2 kids and my parents have, they still have our childhood home in Michigan, and it's awesome to spend Christmas in Michigan, but it's very hard to travel with 2 toddlers.
Oh, sure.
So,
I hear you.
So we end up spending Christmas in Florida. So it's like over the last couple of years with 2 little ones, our traditions have changed a little bit where everybody kind of gathers in Florida, and we now have our warm Christmases.
There you go.
That's
nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Well, Anna, thank you again. This has been great.
Oh, I really, really appreciate you guys having me on. I loved it. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. I'm very excited to introduce our next guest. We have Ann Hawkins, who is the founder of LiveEQ. Ann is a lifelong horse girl, and she's a digital strategist by trade. And prior to launching this very cool app, Ann had a long career in creating and marketing digital products for some of the world's largest corporations, which where she really learned to work to connect people with digital experiences that elevated their daily lives. And she's really taken that passion and pumped all of it into LiveEQ, which we're really excited to hear more about. Hi, Ann. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Ann, obviously you're a horse girl, but it sounds like you're quite busy with this new company that launched in 2019. Can you tell us a little bit about your horsey background and how you got into app development?
Big horse girl. Yeah. I started riding when I was pretty young. Probably have a similar story to like most adult amateurs. My mom was a hunter and put me and my sister on horse when we were probably 4 or 5 years old. So really kind of grew up in that whole world. I switched to jumpers early. I was kind of a crazy kid, so I went that route. I didn't have the patience for the hunters, but just always loved riding so much, and it was a huge part of my life. And then, of course, I hit, my early 20s, and I had to figure out how to do the whole horse thing on my own. Which is, as I'm sure you guys know, pretty difficult. So I went the corporate route. I started a career in marketing and technology, and just did that, and tried to figure out a way to ride while I was building my career. So
that's awesome. And the app is just very cool and such an innovative idea. Just an idea to connect horse people like professionally. Can you tell us about that concept and how you came up with it?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the concept of LiveEQ came out of really like my own personal need. During that time that I'm describing, when I was in my early 20s, this is, obviously way pre-remote work and things like that. Not to super age myself, but, during that time, you kind of had to travel around to get those corporate jobs. So I would move around to a new city. I would get to a place, and the first thing I would do would be Google barns in X city or horses, wherever I was. And I just found it really, really difficult to find places to ride. When I was searching on the internet or just like asking people I would maybe come up with like a couple of places to call, but it was just really difficult. On the other end of that phone call is a really busy barn manager who doesn't really have the time to like field a ton of text messages and phone calls and things like that. So just that connection point, that like, connection of people who really want in and who are, trying to get into the horse industry. And then the people who are actively building and growing their barn families, there really didn't exist a way to put those two together and to seamlessly, I guess, foster that connection. So that's what I came up with. LiveEQ was just to solve that personal need.
Well, and now the app is, it's much more than that. So tell us about how it's grown since you launched it, because now there's a whole community and the app isn't just about just finding a barn. You have so many other, qualities that it kind of touches on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With growth definitely comes change. And we've definitely grown, which is awesome. From the little baby that I started, we're at about 13,000 new users every month right now. And we're still just in the United States. So it's been pretty rapid onboarding. And yeah, a lot of the new features and things that we've added into the app have come organically from that growth. It's been really interesting to hear what equestrians want and to really like pay attention to those pain points. A big one is hiring. A big one is jobs, I guess, from all angles. From the barn manager sides, I hear this all the time. It's like, it's so hard to find people to hire. Some people are hiring like part-time grooms or, just grooms for a show season. And some people are looking for like more longer term help. And everything from grooms to like marketing and administration and finance and stuff like that. It's just really hard for them to know where to post a job where it's going to reach someone who's like even equine adjacent, and knows the lingo. And on the other side, people looking for those careers, a lot of them are in, again, like the more corporate business side of things, and there's no like Indeed for horses,
Right. Yeah.
So that was a big feature of the app that came organically just out of that user acquisition. And we're really doubling down on that a lot and growing that part.
As someone who has literally typed horses into Indeed, yes, there is that doesn't work. But man, like I really wish this existed when I was in my early 20s, like right out of school, like it would have been really helpful. So I'm so glad that you're like filling that need now.
Yeah, it's an isolating time. I will say, like, that just being on the outside of it, especially as someone who's grown up with it or who has ridden in the past and like experienced that, mental health boost that we all get from riding, to go from that to like suddenly being without it and not knowing where to find it. I don't know. Horseback riding is just a weird thing in that way. It's like we're very unique in the way that we're so attached to these animals, and it really feels like very isolating being away from it. So just wanted to try and eliminate that as much as possible.
Yeah. So for users who want to download the app, what's the first thing they should do to start exploring?
I would say go to the filtering on each section. That would be my my first recommendation. There's a lot of categories. There's a lot of posts within each category, so it can be a little overwhelming to just scroll. We've built out pretty advanced filtering on each section to kind of solve this need. So you can filter by discipline, obviously, but it goes a lot deeper than that. You can filter by price range, by breed if you're looking at horses, stables. You can filter by amenities. If you need like bathrooms, that's something that I personally like in my stables, stuff like that. So definitely like go through, click on the category that you're looking for, but get familiar with the filters. Those will be your best friend for sure.
All right, Anne. So I have a fun question for you. With the holidays coming up, do you have any favorite holiday cocktails? Obviously, we love cocktails here on Heels Down Happy Hour, and I didn't know if you had any fun ones to share.
I wish I did. I've always wanted to go into like making beverages, and somehow I just never get there. So I guess I'm just like a holiday traditionalist, and I'll go with eggnog with some whiskey in it. You can't beat a classic, right?
Hey, you never can.
We're big bourbon people here, so you fit right in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, stick with what works,
Thank you so much for coming on, Anne. We really appreciate it, and we love your app, and it's just so awesome. So where can listeners find you and find the app?
Yeah, thanks so much for the support. You can download the app on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Just look up LiveEQ on either and you'll find us there.
Do you have an innovative idea or a new product that could change the horse industry? We want to hear about it. The Anti-Girl Boss, inspired by Patricia Da Silva, the founder of and owner of Heels Down and EcoGold, is seeking equestrian products and ventures to foster and help grow. Patricia has a long track record of helping build and grow businesses as an entrepreneur. And in this new program, selected partners will have an opportunity to expand their distribution and online presence and take their venture to the next level. It's free to apply, and you can find out more by going to heelsdownmag.com and filling out a form that we will also include in our show notes. All right, guys, it's time for Rose and Thorn. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right, what's going on?
For it.
Not much. So my rose is definitely that. So I've been trying to get Doug to do like Christmas pictures or like family pictures and all this. And that probably should be part of my thorn, is because I've had to like be like, let's do this, let's do that. But like, he always like, well, there's something else. So finally today we actually set it up and it turned out to be so fun. We did our Christmas card family pictures type things, but we did it with that truck, like his old, he rebuilt that, I think a 33 Chevy truck that his dad had had for forever. Well, so we took it up to like the top of the hill and set it up. And like, there's some really cool pictures with like the barn in the way background with the truck and us and the kids. And then we did it like with the woods and stuff. So my rose is that I finally got like some really cool pictures and just fun stuff. And to be honest, knocked out my Christmas pictures, because part into my thorn is that show season's over. So now I have to like do more paperwork, like family things, like we're done with showing. And I feel like that is kind of the normal for us. So like, that's like the easier part of it somehow in a weird way. Cause now we have like Thanksgiving and the Christmas party and traveling with the families and my friends getting married. So it's going to be a lot of fun things, but it's going to be a lot of like really, really getting organized to get everything done in a timely manner.
Yeah, I hear you.
So now I just have to like take a deep breath, and everything will be super fun once it like happens. But you know, my family's called 12 times, like, when are we doing Thanksgiving? And I'm like, well, on Thanksgiving. They're like, when are you coming? I'm like, well, I don't really know yet. And they're like, you know, that's next week. And I respond, yes, next week. Then I'll figure it out. And they're like, oh, so sure, everybody's getting annoyed with, we don't know when we're coming to things. We'll be there, but that's it. That's my thorn is.
You'll get there eventually. Up. Yeah.
We'll show up eventually. We'll be there. We'll be there by Thursday. Just don't know what day before that.
What about you, Ellie?
Well, I'll start with my thorn. I know we've shared it in the Spark, but you guys know I used to work at Tioga Downs pulling blood on their racehorses. I stopped when I lost my vision. So the just horrific incident that was the arson that killed 30 horses, and it's just been
it's awful.
It's such a scary, just horrifying event in general. I think every horse person, right? Barn fire is something we all worry about, but to have something like that set on purpose. And I mean, most of the horses were yearlings. One of them wasn't even named yet. Like it breaks my heart. And I know those trainers, I know those owners, and they've lost everything, their horses, their livelihoods. Gosh. One of them even went in, tried to save the horses, and he had to be rushed to the hospitals. He had burns all over his face, and it's just horrific and scary for me because it's so close to home and just totally heartbreaking. But it's also, I'm going to say, like, my rose is also the positive horse community coming together. It always kind of, I don't know why, I'm not surprised, but it always just like warms my heart to see people respond to these things in such a positive way. I know the GoFundMe has already raised over $120,000 The owner of Tioga Downs has agreed to match that $100,000.
That's amazing.
And everyone's just coming together and providing as much support as they can. There's so many local fundraisers at various therapeutic riding facilities and everything. So that's so heartwarming. But my thorn is that the guy who set the fire is not being charged with animal cruelty. He's being
charged with?
Arson, burglary, things like that. But nothing animal cruelty related, which I've already reached out to the DA. And I'm doing my best, but there is a petition on change.org. If anyone else wants to contribute, I think we're up to like 7,600 signed. But I guess sometimes animal cruelties are just really hard to get attorneys to agree to do without community support. So that just terrifies me. But if you guys are interested in helping out or signing that petition, it's on change.org. And if you just search Tioga Downs, it'll show right up. What about you, Justine?
Good question. I would say my thorn is similar to yours, Jess. It's just like, it's that time of the year where you got to pack everything in.
Right.
And you're just like, how am I going to get everything done? And so I moved Mikey out of the dressage barn to across the street. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast yet, but
where Wyatt was?
Yeah, to the farm across the street. A really nice farmer guy who has cows, pigs, chickens, yada yada. And he had an empty horse barn with empty pastures at the time, and he became kind of like an overflow barn for the dressage barn. And I mean, he still pretty much is that, but it's like a self-care situation. So it's me and one of my best eventing friends and another girl who rides with the dressage trainer. I've kind of like taken it over, and it's great. So Mikey's super happy. I'm very happy that he's happy, and Wyatt really loved living there too. But it's like a self-care co-op thing, and this is the first time I've done that in my life. I've always been a full board person. So adding in the stress of the holidays and leaving town, like we all take certain days that we feed and kind of keep, when you're out there, you're looking after all the horses, not just your own.
Yeah.
So it is a bit tricky now, you know what I mean? Like my friend Katie, who has 2 horses there, is like headed to Australia for 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, now I'm responsible for 4 horses until she comes home. But, she's like my riding BFF. So she does the same for me when I'm out of town. But it's just the stress is a little bit more knowing that you are the only person who's,
right.
You know what I mean, for the horses. So that is my
I know all too well.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Something you don't think about. I've yet to find somebody to step in and let Matt and I leave. But
it's a lot. And then you worry about it even when you're gone, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because it's your home, Ellie, and it's all your critters. So, yeah. So I'm getting just a taste of that in this new arrangement. But overall, I like it a lot. You both know that I am a type A crazy person. So I like being in full control over what my horse is eating and yada, yada. So it is working out well so far. So my rose is that... Well, I feel like I've told you guys this, that I sold Wyatt and he went to a wonderful home and he's doing super well there. And the woman who bought him has been kept in touch and he just looks so happy. So that is my rose right now. It's just like getting updates from him and seeing him settle into his new home, and it's going super well. So I could not be more thrilled for him. It's all good. So I feel like that's a nice icing at the end of this year and that experience with him, that he got his forever home out of it. So and I just like that she keeps in touch and sends me photos. So
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So but hey, we got a mailbag that I want to ask both of y'all what you think. Ariana posted this in our Facebook group, and I thought it would be an interesting one to talk about because it feels like a new fad. It's something that I'm hearing about more often. And she wants to know if any of us have ever used a bit fitter and if that experience was worth it. So I don't know, Jess, if you guys are sponsored by anybody, because I feel like the bit fitters I've seen, like saddle fitters, tend to be from
they come
brands.
from one brand or something, or like a kind of chain. So we have actually not used one. I think we have made, and we don't have a bit sponsor. I think that we have a collection of bits over time, and Doug and I kind of have a different feel for what we want in a horse type thing.
Sure.
So like what I might want is going to be similar, but not exactly what Doug wants. So we kind of find, okay, does the mouthpiece bigger or smaller or whatever else, or more leverage or need something? We do it more by trial and error. And we bought a old antique big chest, not even a chest. It's like I don't even know what you would call it. It's like almost like a big chest drawer type thing. And it's got
like a big bureau type. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's really cute how you guys did that.
And so because we had so many bits and we had bit boxes, but I couldn't even find them in the bit boxes, even though I had the little like dolly things that like you pick up, but I couldn't find the right ones. So my mom and her friend actually sent me this picture of like an open cabinet one. And then I found one with doors and stuff. And so I ended up just doing that. And I take my time and just play with it, to be honest. Like if it's not exactly what I want, you know, maybe I go for a hack that day or whatever else, or do something light. Or if I'm going to jump, maybe have like 3 options, and I take my time in swapping the bits and stuff. So yeah, I haven't really personally used a bit fitter because I think that we just spend the time and do trial of error because it takes a lot of time. And what one bit works one day, in 6 months, I might want to change it again to something a little more, or honestly, a lot of times I go a little less.
I feel like one, you got to post a picture of your bit box furniture in the group, but yeah, I think it's interesting. So I said it's like a new fad because I think that's kind of what it is, you know? And I think it's, you know, if it's gives you an opportunity to learn more, I think that's great. You know, it makes me think of, there's a vet here in Ocala who's quite well known, Dr. Bess Darrow, who is like a DVM vet who specializes in dentistry. And I've seen a few different like clinic talks she's given and does like a bridle fitting demonstration, but she is a vet, you know, and obviously does dental work in their mouths that I've learned a lot. Like, for example, I see a lot of posts online and people will tell me, oh, well, my horse has a low palate. And she will be the first person to tell you that like that doesn't exist. That's not like a real thing when people say that. But you know, understanding your horse's palate is, I think, important. Understanding like the right size, you know, bits come in different sizes, right? And obviously if a bit is too big in their mouth or too small in their mouth is going to have a different effect. And horses might like a bean lozenge in the middle, or they might not. Like you said, it's trial and error. But if you're not comfortable doing that on your own, maybe a bit fitting clinic is worth it. An amateur eventer in town put on one, and I think it was I always say their name wrong. The NS company. What is it? New Schul. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about, but I also can't pronounce it.
They're like the cool it bit right now company. How do you say it? It's N, like the letters are NS. New Schul. I'm never gonna say it right. You guys can all laugh at me. But anyways,
no, I can't pronounce it either. No shame.
So
no, that's why I was like, no.
The fitter represented that brand, and it's a really high end type of bit. It's a $200 plus.
Yeah,
bit,
they're expensive.
You know,
But
there's a reason for that. Most horses really like them. They go well. There's like an ergonomic design. They're big on their research. So I do think there's something to learn. And I think with the different types of bridles we use now, you know, like they're all different types of fits on how I see so many people with the Mickelman bridles that like the
they
bits
don't
are
fit
not
properly.
Yeah, and the bits are just like flopping around because they don't fit the horse's face correctly. And
no, but that's the problem, is like so many don't fit correctly, and they have them on, or they're too loose or too tight, or not fit, and that can go. It's not just those bridles; it could be just a plain cavesson. It can be the figure 8.
Yeah,
and so for me, like, we have the NS bits and everything else, because I'm not even going to go about pronouncing that. But so we have an array of them, and we have everything. And I feel like it's very dependent. And so yes, I find
every
that
horse
there's a
is
need
different.
for it. Yeah, but I think there's a
Exactly.
need for certain things, and there's not. And I find it depends on what you're really looking for, because I think it could be if you were like, okay, look, I need to for the knowledge. I think that it would be very helpful.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
But
I mean-
like, so like I went and brought bits, and I felt like I was pushed to buy a new bit. You know what I mean? But so if you don't trust your own knowledge, or you don't have like a trainer, like, as I really feel like experience is what is important here. Like, Jess, you would be the first person I would ask if I was like, hey, I bought this bridle. Does this bit look like it fits correctly? Do I have it put on correctly?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, and people send me texts. I mean, a good friend of mine just sent me, and she's like, is this not fitting correctly? And then I text, she's like, I didn't have it adjusted correctly. She texts me back, and like, it is just the whole thing is just trial and error.
So, but I think, if you want to learn something, I think it's worthwhile. Like, I think you could absolutely learn from meeting with a bit fitter and finding out, 1, more about your horse's mouth, and 2, more about their own sensitivities, and 3, making sure all the face tack fits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think also another option outside of bit fitting is a lot of clinicians. I've clinicked with Bernie Tarrig and in the Western, Les Vogt, and both of them during their clinics would have you try different bits. Bernie Tarrig is very into
that's cool.
just the standard snaffle, but he would say, why are you riding this horse in this? Try him in this. Like, let's, lower it this much. And like those kind of things I think are huge. Like, I learned, like, Berkeley really doesn't like thick bits. He likes very just thin and kind of straight. He's not a big fan of breaks or anything like that. He's a more mullen mouth kind of guy. But I think those kind of options too, like, look around, because a lot of good clinicians will actually have you ride in the clinic and change your bit 6 times. And that's, like, I think a great way to be able to figure it out is like, oh, wow, I've noticed. Because the thing is, like you said, Jess, right? A bit can be different depending on the day. But if you ride a horse in 6 different bits at the same day, and having someone on the ground that's able to help you change it through, those are huge. So, but yeah, I think it's all about learning, like Justine said.
Yeah. So if you have a question for us and you want us to answer it on the show, you can always send us an email by going to hello@heelsdownmedia.com, or you can join our Facebook group. It's the Heels Down Happy Hour Podcast Lounge. And if you want to hear more from us, you should subscribe to the Heels Down Spark by going to bit.ly/sparkbyhd. We want to thank our partners this week, Zero Proof Horse Treats and LiveEQ. All right, guys, that's a wrap.
Cheers.
Cheers.